I never thought cleaning cabins could pay so well. Not for someone like me, anyway. I dropped out of college after 2 semesters, bounced between dead-end jobs, and had a habit of saying yes to things before thinking them through. When I found the listing online, remote cabin maintenance, high pay, full solitude, minimal contact, it felt like a godsend. All I had to do was maintain a cluster of 6 vacation cabins deep in the woods of the Osborne Forest, a few hours outside of town. They were owned by a reclusive company called Forest Haven Properties. Sounded fancy, sounded easy. The contract was unusually short, just a 3-month gig with double the usual wage. The catch: I had to live on site, no exceptions, and follow a specific routine. But I didn't care. I needed the money, and honestly, the idea of living alone in the woods, far from everything, felt like a reset. I imagined peaceful mornings, sipping coffee on the porch of some pine-scented retreat, watching deer wander past. What I got was something else. It began the moment I arrived at the ranger station to collect the keys. The man who handed them to me didn't smile, didn't speak much either. He pushed a laminated sheet across the counter and said, "Memorize these. Don't ask questions." There were no greetings, no paperwork, just that flat voice and a set of keys marked cabins, 1 through 6. The paper had a title in bold red ink: Operational Rules for Cabin Keeper Osborne Forest Cluster. Some of the rules made sense, some didn't. I'll get into that soon. When I asked the man about the 7th Keitha 1 tagged Cabin 0, he froze, his lips pressed tight. Then he said, almost under his breath, "Don't touch that one, ever." Then he turned and walked into the back room, shutting the door behind him. That should have been my first sign something was off. But I was too focused on the paycheck, too used to keeping my head down and getting through. I drove the gravel road deep into the forest for nearly an hour. No cell service, no other cars, just endless trees, until finally, the road curved around a thicket and opened into a small clearing. 6 cabins spaced in a semicircle around an empty fire pit. Rustic, but neat. Each one built with thick logs, moss lining the rooftops. One had a rocking chair. Another had wind chimes made of antlers, dot off to the side. Nestled against the edge of the forest stood Cabin 0. It was smaller than the others, older, sunken just a little into the soil, like it had tried to bury itself. The windows were boarded up. The porch was rotted. There was a chain looped through the front door handle, though the lock was broken and rusted, like it hadn't been touched in years. I parked my truck in front of Cabin 3 mine for the next 3 months. Sand unloaded my stuff by sunset. The woods were deathly quiet. No crickets, no birds. Just the soft, unnerving creak of the trees shifting overhead. I sat on the porch, stared out at the other cabins, and told myself this would be fine. That I was being paranoid, but deep down, something in me knew this wasn't a cleaning job. The first morning was colder than I expected. I stepped out of Cabin 3 with a mug of stale instant coffee and watched the mist curl low around the treetops. It was beautiful in the way old cemeteries are, quiet, serene, but with a heavy silence that pressed down on your chest. I made my rounds to each of the cabins like I was supposed to. The key ring jingled in my pocket, each one labeled and faded. Handwriting: 1, 2, 4, 5, and 6 all stood quietly. Doors locked, windows shut, no signs of guests. They were all empty. All except Cabin 2, where the beds were freshly made and a damp towel hung from the bathroom hook. That was strange. No car in the lot, no noise inside, but the heater was on, and someone had left half a glass of water on the nightstand. I knocked twice. No answer. I didn't go in. I didn't have the nerve. Later that day, I unpacked the rest of my things, including a second laminated sheet tucked at the bottom of the welcome folder in my cabin. It was the same one the ranger had shown me, but with extra notes scribbled in the margins and penned out at the top. In all caps. You must follow these rules exactly. They are not optional. There were 7 main rules. I remember every single one. Rule 1. Never enter cabin 0. Even if you hear something inside. Even if the door is open. Even if someone is knocking. Notes scribbled in pen. If it's open, lock yourself in your own cabin and wait until sunrise. Rule 2. Leave fresh firewood on the porch of cabin. 2. Every night before 8 p.m. Do not look through the window. Do not knock. Do not wait to see if it's taken. Note, scribbled. It's not always taken. That's normal. Don't try twice. Rule 3. When sweeping the porches, start with cabin 6 and work backwards. Never go in reverse order. Don't skip one, even if it looks fine. Note, if you mess this up, go back to your cabin. Turn all the lights off, and sit quietly until sunrise. Rule 4. If you find a cabin door open in the morning, close it, but do not step inside. Speak out loud, "You are not welcome here." Say it 3 times. Note, if you hear movement inside, don't acknowledge it. Just walk away. Rule 5. Every Sunday at midnight, ring the iron bell behind cabin 5. Just once, even if it's raining. Even if you're sick, especially if you're afraid. Note, it's worse if you skip it. Rule 6. Avoid mirrors after dark. If you see your reflection moving when you're not, turn off the light. Count to 30. Leave the room. Note, don't go back in until sunrise, and never bring the mirror outside. Rule 7. If you hear someone calling your name from the woods, don't answer. Don't run. Don't speak. Close your eyes and plug your ears until it stops. Note, they lie, especially when they sound like someone you love. I sat on the edge of my bed reading those rules over and over again, trying to figure out if it was some sick joke. I thought maybe it was a weird form of hazing. Maybe the company had a dark sense of humor, or the ranger was trying to mess with me. But something about the handwriting and the margins felt desperate. Like someone had added those notes in a hurry. Someone who had been scared. I didn't know what to believe. So I did what I always do when I'm not sure. I followed directions. That night, I carried a bundle of firewood to cabin 2's porch. The place still looked empty, but I didn't check. I dropped the wood and walked away without knocking. As I turned, I thought I saw a curtain shift in the upstairs window. I kept walking. The forest felt tighter at night. The wind didn't rustle the trees the same way. The shadows between the cabins stretched longer than they should have. I kept reminding myself, these are just creepy rules, nothing more. But even then, part of me wondered, who exactly was I keeping these cabins clean for? No one had shown up. No one had left. And yet, every morning, things shifted. The porch lights would be on at one cabin. A new footprint would appear in the snow. A fresh towel would be drying on the rail outside cabin 5. The 6th day, I found a small wooden figurine sitting on the step of cabin 0, hand-carved rough. It looked like a man, bent over with his hands covering his ears. I didn't touch it. I swept around it. I didn't ask questions. By the end of the first week, I wasn't wondering whether the rules were real. I was wondering how long I could follow them before I made a mistake. It was around day 9 when I made my first mistake. Not a big one, at least. It didn't feel that way at the time. I wasn't trying to break the rules. Honestly, I didn't even notice I had until it was too late. That morning, I was sweeping porches like usual. Cold fog rolled in early, and the wood boards were slick with dew. I started at cabin 6 and moved backward 5, 4, 3 just like the list instructed. But halfway through cabin 2's porch, I stopped to retie my boot. When I stood up again, I realized I'd skipped cabin 1. I don't know how. I must have walked right past it. My brain was on autopilot. I was sleep-deprived, sore, and distracted by the weirdest sound drifting through the woods like something whistling. No melody, just one long, off-key note carried by the wind. I stood there on cabin 2's porch, broom in hand, heart hammering. My first thought was to rush back and do it over. Sweep cabin 1, then finish up. But then I remembered the scribbled note. Don't go in reverse order. If you mess this up, go back to your cabin, turn all the lights off, and sit quietly until sunrise. It was 10:42 in the morning. Sunrise was over 18 hours away. I felt ridiculous. What would sitting alone in the dark for that long even accomplish? I told myself it was superstition, that whoever wrote those notes must have been on something. Cabin 0, paranoia, probably. I couldn't afford to waste an entire day hiding, so I swept cabin 1 anyway. In reverse that night, I woke to knocking, not on my cabin door, on the window above my bed, just 3 soft knocks, like fingertips. Tap, 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 dot. I froze. My room was dark except for the red glow of the alarm clock. 3:17 a.m. I didn't move. I barely breathed. There was no wind, no rain, just that silence again too thick, like the air had stopped moving. Another knock, this one a little louder. Tap, tap, tap. The window was closed. The blinds were drawn, but I could feel it. Someone was standing just inches away, on the other side of the glass. Slowly, without making a sound, I rolled over to face the wall. I remembered. The rule, the one about not answering when something calls from the woods. This wasn't the same, but it felt close. It felt wrong. Then I heard the door creak. Mine, one of the other cabins. The sound echoed faintly across the clearing, a distant, wooden groan. Then another knock, this time from a different side of the house. My stomach dropped. It wasn't the same person. There were more than one. Moving around the cabin, I stayed frozen for what felt like hours. Eventually, the knocking stopped. The air shifted. The forest resumed its usual whisper. At sunrise, I stepped outside and saw muddy footprints circling my entire cabin. They weren't mine. That afternoon, I checked the porch of cabin 1, just to be sure. And there, sitting in the center of the doormat, was a fresh bundle of twigs tied with string. Not firewood, twigs. Underneath it, another figurine. This one carved to look like a person lying on their side, arms curled around their knees. It was facing the door. I didn't sweep any porches that day. Didn't even leave my cabin. I locked the door, pulled the curtains, and sat in the dark, like the note had said. Not because I believed it would protect me, but because I didn't know what else to do. By nightfall, the figurine was gone. The rules weren't guidelines, they were warnings, and I had just been given my first one. I became obsessed with following the rules after that. No more autopilot, no more guesswork. I read the laminated sheet every morning, and again every night before bed. I treated it like scripture. I even made a copy in a small notebook that I carried everywhere, in case something happened to the original. And for a little while nothing happened. No knocks, no figurines, no muddy footprints. Cabin 2's firewood was taken like clockwork. The iron bell behind cabin 5 sat silent, waiting for Sunday. Cabin 0 remained unchanged, boarded up and silent, as a tomb. Until the mirror incident. It started with something small. I was brushing my teeth late one night, standing in front of the bathroom mirror in cabin 3. I was tired. My reflection looked the same, more or less, except it wasn't brushing its teeth in sync with me. Not at first. There was maybe a half-second delay, a tiny lag, like a bad video call. I blinked hard, rubbed my eyes. When I looked again, it was fine. I figured I was just sleep-deprived, but the next night, the reflection didn't lag. It smiled before I did. Not wide, just slightly, like it knew something I didn't. I turned off the light, counted to 30, left the room. I didn't look into that mirror again for days. I used my phone camera or the window glare to shave. I didn't want to risk it, but curiosity is a disease, and on the 4th night, I broke. It was around 2 a.m., I stood in front of the mirror, holding my breath, watching. At first, everything was normal. My reflection copied every motion, every blink. Then, it stopped. I lifted my hand. The reflection stayed still. I tilted my head. It stared straight ahead, and then it lifted its hand, slowly, deliberately, not mirroring me, but reaching forward, like it was trying to touch the other side of the glass. I backed away, heart pounding. I turned off the light and stumbled out of the bathroom, shutting the door behind me. I sat on the edge of the bed, palms slick with sweat. 30 seconds. That's what the rule said. But I waited an hour before going back in. The mirror was normal. Again. My reflection was me, but I know something uses the mirrors. Maybe to watch, maybe to mimic, maybe to slip through, given the chance. That night, I covered every mirror in my cabin with towels. The bathroom, the closet, even the face of my wristwatch. I didn't sleep. A few days later, while delivering firewood to cabin 2, I noticed something had changed. There was a scent coming from inside. Faint, but distinct. Rot. It wasn't strong enough to say for sure, but it hit me in the stomach like wet meat left out in the sun. The windows were still closed. The porch light was still on, even during the day. But something had shifted. Bent down to leave the bundle, but before I could stand, I heard it. A voice from inside the cabin. Help, barely audible, croaky, almost childlike. I froze, hands still on the wood. Please, someone help, it repeated, more desperate. A different voice now. Older, feminine. It sounded like it came from under the floorboards. Then, another. We're still here. I dropped the wood and ran. Didn't look back, didn't knock, didn't stop until I was inside my own cabin with the door locked and my ears ringing. That night, I sat with the rules again, rereading them like I was trying to decode scripture. I noticed something in the margin I hadn't seen before, smudged in faded ink. Cabin 2 isn't empty. Never was. That line hit me like ice. All those days I'd left firewood. All the mornings when the bundle had vanished, I thought I was helping a caretaker, a hunter, a ghost town drifter. But what if I wasn't helping someone? What if I was feeding something? After what happened at cabin 2, I couldn't shake the voices. They were too clear, too human, too many. I kept wondering how long they'd been calling out and how close I'd come to answering them. So I started digging. I waited until mid-afternoon, when the woods felt a little less suffocating. Then I drove back down the gravel road to the ranger station, the same place where I'd first gotten the keys. It sat at the edge of the forest, like it had been forgotten by time. I hadn't seen another car since I arrived. I wasn't even sure anyone worked there. To my surprise, the door was unlocked. Inside, it smelled like old wood and burnt coffee. The place was dim, with one buzzing fluorescent light overhead. The desk where the ranger had first given me the rules sat untouched, dust-covered, empty. I called out. No answer. I wandered behind the counter, past a faded employees-only sign. The back room was cluttered with filing cabinets, metal shelves stacked with outdated radios, and piles of folders with Forest Haven properties stamped on them. At first, most of it was boring maintenance logs, tax records, supply shipments. But in the bottom drawer of the largest cabinet, I found something that didn't belong. A red journal, unlabeled, bound in leather, no property tag. I opened it. Inside were handwritten entries, some just a few lines long, others pages deep, all signed at the bottom with the initials TM. April 3rd, 2007, I heard them again. From inside cabin 2. A woman this time. She knew my name, but I didn't answer. I didn't make the same mistake again. May 9th, 2007, the boy from cabin 4 didn't follow the order. Started from 1 instead of 6. I told him to sit in the dark. He laughed. 2 nights later, he disappeared. Just his boots left on the porch. June 22nd, 2007, cabin 0's chain was cut. I found it swinging. No footprints. I didn't go inside. I left a bell on the porch instead. It rang all night. The further I read, the worse it got. Pages described shadows walking between cabins after midnight, mirrors that changed the expression on your face, and figures mimicking residents and knocking on windows. One entry detailed a hiker who accidentally camped behind cabin 6 and was never seen again. Just his torn tent and a figurine left where his campfire had been. Another entry mentioned a woman named Riley, who apparently worked the cabins before me. Her name appeared again and again. August 1st, 2008. Riley said she heard children in cabin 0. I begged her not to go near it. She waited until I was asleep. We found her coat outside the door the next morning. That's all. August 3rd, 2008. We changed the locks, boarded the windows, nailed the chain shut. Didn't matter. Some things don't stay locked. August 9th, 2008. Cabin 0 is not a building. It's a mouth. That line made me stop reading. I sat there, my hands trembling, the old journal heavy in my lap. I flipped to the last page. September 12th, 2009. I don't think I'll make it through this season. The rules are failing. The forest is waking up. They don't want a keeper anymore. They want a witness. If someone reads this, burn it all. Burn the cabins. Salt the dirt. If you hear knocking, don't answer. If you hear crying, it's already too late. T.T.M. There were no more entries. I took the journal and left. That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat at the window, staring across the clearing at cabin 0. Its door was still chained, still rotting, still sunken into the earth, like something waiting to be unearthed. I began noticing strange details, like how the shadows around cabin 0 never shifted, even when the trees swayed, or how no animals ever came near it. No squirrels, no deer, no birds. The forest avoided it. I pulled out the journal again and started piecing things together. Cabin 0 didn't just break the rules, it made them. Something lived there, or maybe beneath it. Something old, something buried. The rules weren't to protect the cabins from it. They were to keep it asleep. Every fire would drop. Every bell ring. Every whispered "you are not welcome." They were rituals, wards, small offerings to keep the thing under cabin 0 from waking fully. And the figurines. Warnings, effigies, representations of whoever had broken the pattern. My stomach dropped as I remembered mine, the little figure curled up on its side. I remembered something else, too. The chain on cabin 0 had a faint clinking sound every time the wind blew. Except the wind hadn't blown in 3 days. At sunrise, I walked to the cabin again. This time, I wasn't just scared. I was furious. Furious that I'd been dropped into this nightmare with no explanation. No backup, no escape. Just rules scribbled by some man who vanished 15 years ago. I stood 10 feet away from the porch, staring at the door, and that's when I saw it. The chain was gone, not broken, not cut, just gone. The door was shut, but the handle had been turned. Scratches ran across the wood fresh deep, as if something had tried to claw its way in or out. A small figurine sat in front of the door. This one looked like me. It was holding a mirror. I didn't touch the figurine, didn't speak, didn't blink. I just turned and walked backward, slowly, until cabin 0 was out of sight. My brain was screaming at me to run, but something deeper, something primal told me not to turn my back. Not now, not when the door had been opened. When I finally reached my own cabin, I slammed the door shut, locked every bolt, and drew the curtains tight. Then I grabbed the hammer from under the sink and nailed the bathroom door shut. Mirror and all, it was already getting dark. I don't remember falling asleep. I only remember waking up to silence. Not normal silence either. Not the gentle hush of the woods or the distant rustle of wind in trees. This was deeper, like the whole forest had paused its breathing. The red numbers on the alarm clock read 12 a.m., flashing. Power was out. My phone was dead too. I reached for the flashlight and flicked it on. As the beam cut through the dark, I noticed something immediately. The windows were uncovered. I'd taped every curtain down earlier that day. Now they were pulled open, exposing the black forest, just inches from the glass. I rose from the bed, heart thudding, and crept toward the closest window. The beam of my flashlight barely pierced to the dark, catching only the first few trees. That's when I saw it. A shape standing between cabins 4 and 5. Tall, slender, pale. It wasn't moving, but it wasn't still, either. It pulsed, faintly, like a slow heartbeat. I squinted, leaning in. It turned, not its head. Its entire body rotated toward me, smooth and soundless. Its face, or what should have been a face, was a wide, featureless mirror, silver liquid. My flashlight's reflection blinked back at me. Then my reflection blinked again, long after I had. I dropped the light. It clattered on the floor, spinning wildly. I backed away from the window, breath catching in my throat. A knock, right behind me. On the other window, I turned. Another face, another mirror. No eyes, no mouth. Just that same reflective surface. Only this one was closer. It didn't knock again. Instead, it raised its hand and pointed to the side toward the front door. The knocking started there next, but it wasn't alone now. 6 knocks. 6 different locations, all around the cabin. They weren't trying to get in, they were searching. I ran to the bedroom, dove under the bed, and pulled the emergency blanket over me like a child. I know how stupid that sounds, but when your brain collapses under fear, instinct takes over. I closed my eyes, plugged my ears. I remembered the rule: if they call your name, don't answer. Close your eyes, plug your ears, don't run. But they weren't calling, not yet. They were surrounding. Then, finally, a voice, soft, calm, familiar. "Hey, it's me." It was my brother's voice. "You're okay, you've just been dreaming. It's me, open the door." I hadn't spoken to my brother in 2 years. He didn't even know I was out here. Still, the voice was perfect. Every syllable, every memory-loaded tone. I squeezed my eyes shut tighter. "Come on, don't be scared. Just one look." Then another voice. My mother's. "It's okay, sweetheart. We're here now. Come outside. Let us in." Then dozens of voices. People I loved. People I barely remembered. All calling, all inviting, all lying. I kept my ears covered until I started crying. Eventually, the voices stopped. The knocking faded, but I didn't move. I waited until morning and till sunlight bled through the slats of the boarded bathroom door. When I finally opened the front door, I saw what they had left. Dozens of figurines, scattered all across the porch. Some sitting, some curled, some standing with their arms raised, reaching toward the cabin. Every single one had a mirrored face. I made a decision that day. I couldn't stay. Not another night. I packed everything. Took the journal, the rule sheet, even my old camping gear. I didn't care about the contract anymore. I didn't care about the money. I just wanted out. But when I started the truck, the radio turned on by itself. A soft crackle, then static, then a voice, deep, slow, not male or female. Just one word: stay. The truck shut off. The keys melted in the ignition. Not figuratively. They melted like wax. I sat there for a long time, staring at the steering wheel, realizing what it meant. I wasn't leaving. Not by road. Not without help. Not unless something allowed it. The next day, I did something desperate. I hiked back to the ranger station. It was a 2-hour walk through the thickest part of the woods, and every step felt like it took a piece of me. The trees leaned too close. The light didn't reach the ground. I felt like I was walking through someone's lungs, wet, warm, and pulsing. But I made it, or at least, I thought I did, because when I got there the station looked wrong. It was the same building, same structure, but it was rotted now, like it had been abandoned for decades. The window I looked through just days ago was shattered. The door, still slightly open, creaked on rusted hinges. Moss crawled up the walls. Inside, the air smelled like mildew and copper, but the strangest thing, the lights were still on. A single flickering bulb hummed behind the front desk, and seated beneath it was a man I'd seen before. The Ranger Dot, same gray uniform, same empty eyes. He didn't look surprised to see me, just nodded slowly, like he'd been expecting this. "You read the journal?" he said. I nodded. "You saw them?" Another nod. He exhaled through his nose and reached into a drawer behind the desk, pulled out something wrapped in cloth, and laid it gently in front of me. I hesitated, then unwrapped it. A mirror, small pocket-sized, cracked diagonally. My reflection stared back, tired, pale, and shaking. "It's not about keeping them out," he said. "It's about keeping you in." I stared at him. "What are they?" I asked. He didn't answer, just tapped the mirror. "The cabins are the gateposts. The rules are the lock. And you're the key." Something shifted in his voice. It wasn't tired anymore. It was reverent. It always needs a keeper, but every few decades, the keeper becomes the offering. I took a step back. "What do you mean?" He finally merely looked at me, and I saw it. His eyes were mirrors, polished, seamless, reflective. My heart stopped. I turned and ran. He didn't follow me. He didn't need to. By the time I got back to the cabins, things had changed. The woods felt smaller. The path from the station wasn't there anymore. It was like the forest had swallowed it behind me. I ran to cabin 3, slammed the door, and looked around for the rule sheet. Gone, my notebook gone. Even the journal had vanished from my bag. In its place, resting neatly on the bed, was a new laminated sheet. Same formatting, same red title. But the rules were different now. Only one line in bold: "Keep cabin 0 occupied at all times." Below that, in pen, "It's your turn." I sank to the floor, choking on air. The realization hit me like a blade between the ribs. I'd never been hired to maintain the cabins. I'd been chosen, groomed, baited, delivered. The rules weren't for safety. They were for containment, not of something else, of me. I was never meant to leave, and someone maybe. Dozens before me had all played there. P.A.R.T.T.M. Riley. Whoever left the notes. They weren't just survivors, they were sacrifices. That night, I didn't light the fire, didn't sweep the porches, didn't ring the bell. I broke every rule on purpose. Because if the rules were meant to keep me here, to preserve this place, this cycle, then maybe breaking them was the only way to escape it, or destroy it. I packed my bag with what little I had left. The broken flashlight, the old figurine they left me, a hammer, and the cracked mirror the ranger gave me. Then I walked straight toward cabin 0. It didn't try to stop me. No wind, no knocking, no voices. Cabin 0 stood as silent and sunken as always, its doorway dark and gaping. The porch groaned beneath my boots like a dying breath. I stepped up, slowly, one foot, then the other. The door creaked open without resistance. The air inside was still, heavy, thick with dust and something older than rot. The walls were warped, the floor sunken inward, like the house itself had collapsed into its own lungs. And in the center of the room, beneath a shaft of pale moonlight leaking through a cracked board in the roof, was a chair, wooden, simple, facing a blank wall. No other furniture, no windows, just the chair, and behind it, carved deep into the wood, "Sit, watch, become." I should have left, but there was nowhere to go, so I sat and waited. At first, nothing happened, just the sound of my own breathing. Then, slowly, the wall in front of me shimmered, like heat rising off pavement. My reflection appeared, but not the one I expected. It wasn't me as I was, it was me as I'd be. Older, pale, gaunt, dressed in the same forest ranger uniform I'd seen on the man at the station. A new version of him. Of them, my future self raised its hand and pointed back at me. The meaning was clear. I wasn't meant to survive. I was meant to replace. I stood quickly, the chair scraping backward, heart thudding. "No," I whispered, and the reflection smiled. I ran. The forest was wrong now. No trails, no stars, just endless black trees stretching in every direction. I could hear them behind me, the mirror faces, not running, just walking. They didn't need to chase. They knew I'd run out of options eventually. I crashed through branches, thorns tearing at my arms and legs, until I saw it. The iron bell behind cabin 5. The one I was supposed to ring every Sunday at midnight. It was Sunday now, and it was exactly midnight. I didn't hesitate. I grabbed the rope and ripped it downward, hard. The bell screamed, not a clean chime, but a twisted, rusty shriek that echoed through the trees like a war horn. Something in the forest howled in response. The ground shook. A wind exploded outward from cabin 0, knocking me off my feet. The mirror in my bag shattered. The figurine crumbled to dust. The trees screamed, and then silence. When I opened my eyes, the cabins were gone. No structures, number, path, no ranger station, just trees, and a single trail behind me, winding out of the woods. I didn't ask questions. I walked. I hiked for hours, until I reached the road somehow. My truck was parked right where I left it, keys intact, ignition working. No melted metal, no voices on the radio, just silence. I drove until I saw streetlights again, until I heard birds, until the world felt real. I didn't look in the rearview mirror the entire way. It's been 3 months since I left Forest Haven. 3 months since the cabins vanished behind me. Since I rang that bell and watched the forest scream. I moved states, changed my number, took a job in a warehouse where the lights never flicker and the walls don't breathe. I keep everything bright now, no shadows, no mirrors, no silence. But even here, I don't sleep much, because it followed me. It started small, a twig bundle on my doorstep. Thought it was a prank then. A few days later, the lights in my apartment began flickering at exactly midnight. I tried calling the electric company. They said there was no power surge, no outages, no issues at all. Last week, I came home from work and found the bathroom mirror uncovered. I never leave it exposed. Never. And in the corner of the glass, just for a second, I saw someone else's eyes staring back, not mine. They blinked out of sync this morning. I received a package, no return address, no postage. Inside was a small wooden figurine. It looked just like me, same jacket, same scar above the brow, but its hands were nailed to its sides, and it was sitting in a tiny chair, facing a blank wall. Taped to the bottom was a message, 3 words, in that same familiar handwriting. Your turn again. I don't think I escaped the forest. I think it moved. Or worse, I think I brought it with me. Because sometimes, at night, I still hear the bell, not ringing from the woods, but from inside the walls. And when I close my eyes, I can feel the chair behind me, waiting. Always waiting. Fade to black whispered line. Cabin 0 is never empty. It just waits for the next keeper.